Association Virtual Clinic. We're excited to have as our next speaker here, Coach Andrew Coverdale, the offensive coordinator at St. Xavier High School. He's going to be talking about field side compliments to the St. Xavier screen game. So, Coach, we appreciate you taking the time, and it's all yours.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I love this clinic. I was fortunate enough to be able to visit you in person a couple of years ago, and my great friend John Rice, who's added a lot to my life and my career. It was a great experience. So it's great to be back with you all. So what I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes on is basically where we've evolved some of our screen game. We have been, or places I have been a boundary alley screen driven team for a long time. And that would be a whole other talk if you want to go way down in the weeds on all the techniques and splits that we use, and the rhythm and all the details of our boundary alley screen. I would be glad to share that with you. I'll show you kind of our goal screen and how we introduce the boundary alley screen. But what I'm going to do for the majority of the night is talk about how we've complemented that with some of the same types of screens to the field and not added a lot of new skill burden for our players, and been able to keep the teaching relatively, as people would say, same as, without increasing the learning or skill development burden. We've been able to complement our boundary alley screen game, which is really a base play for us. We've been able to complement it in some ways that have been helpful. So that's kind of the direction we're going to take it. And hopefully I'll leave time at the end for film and time for questions. Now, I talk about this a lot, and I really believe in this. For really anything that we do, we always start with a goal slide. Any concept, anything that we do, we're going to introduce with a big picture of, hey, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Because what I want our kids to be able to do as we start, before we ever get into rules, assignments, and especially technique, is I want them to have a sense of how they fit in, so that those rules and assignments and techniques make sense to them intuitively, so that we're kind of building in a conversation about the why. And so this is our goal screen for any of what we would call our 80 series screens. This is the picture that we're trying to paint for them. We're trying to allow defensive linemen to penetrate so that we can get linemen out quickly and create what we would call an alley, 6 yards outside the tackle, 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage. So that is the picture for us. And this is going to be true on an alley screen to the boundary, which is our base, or on an alley screen to the field, which I'll get into more in just a minute. Any of the screens you see at the top, 88, 89, 80, 81, 86, 87, 82, 83, all of those have this in common, that we are trying to get a guy to that spot 6x1, and we're trying to create an alley for him to run through as we do so. We're going to have somebody basically secure every edge of that alley. So a receiver, or possibly a tight end, occasionally a tackle, sometimes a running back, is going to secure the upper edge of the alley by blocking the guy covering the screener, who most often is the corner. And then we're going to set the rest of the alley with the 2 or 3 linemen that we are releasing. And so the kids right away have a visual of what we're trying to accomplish. Again, this is nothing revolutionary. Everybody has a version of this. I learned this from Rob Spence, who was at Toledo and Clemson and all over the place 15 years ago. A lot of people do this, but I do think there's value for us, at least in terms of how we teach it. So one of the things we want to see right away is, we want our kids to see right away is, okay, well, how can screens like this be stopped? What can cause problems? Because we want to get a jump on the problems. And again, this is going to help explain some of the technique we give them. It allows us, when we start talking technique, we can say it's because we want to prevent this roadblock or this problem, or it's because this is how this technique helps achieve this goal. So One mistake we can make is by getting too much contact on the D lineman, slow their penetration, and allow them to what we call retrace. So if you're going to be a screen team, certainly your linemen need to understand the concept of retracing defensive linemen, why it's a problem, and what are some of the ways we can combat it. Screener course is a big deal on any kind of alley screen, starting with our boundary alley screen, but all the other ones I'm going to talk to you about tonight as well. That's a big deal. And so we have to practice everything in terms of the relationship of the blockers to the screen spot and the timing. And we do some things when we teach this to help our screeners and our blockers kind of self-evaluate whether they're timing it and pacing it correctly. Now, this last one is a big part of the reason that we have had to evolve to having some alley, funnel, jailbreak, whatever you want to call this screen. We've had to have some field complements to this, because when you play defenses that structurally have low overhangs to the boundary on the high school hashes, in other words, a 3-4 defense most often, but it can be other kind of, it can be weak rotation, or it can be, but if you have people that are consistently getting an overhang player within 3 to 4 yards of the line of scrimmage to the boundary, he can be a real problem for your first guy out to get to. And so you have to have some other ways to counteract that. And part of that is by giving ourselves some options to the field with this kind of screen. So that's part of where this conversation really originates from. This right here is our base boundary version that we would typically run 2x2 or potentially 3x1 with the running back kicking out to the boundary. This is our 88, 89. Like I said, we've been running it, I guess, for 18 or 19 years now, more or less in its current form. Again, that's not what this talk is about. I'm just showing you sort of the base building block and how we teach some of the concepts and some of the techniques as they align with the goals that you just saw me lay out for you. So this is the starting point. This is always our number one alley screen. It really is, you would say, an attitude play for us. And so this is the beginning of everything else that we're doing. Now, here is the first thing that we did to complement it. And so let me back up for just a second and say that one of the problems that you have with this screen right here is, or one of the things you have to be mindful of each week, is that this number 4, we have a count system, corner, and then whoever's 2, it could potentially be a safety on the hard deck. And then 3 is a B or a C or sometimes an A-gap linebacker. This number 4 in certain defensive structures can be a little bit of a problem, especially because you do run out of space to the short side of the field. And so we need something to account for that. We need something at times in certain weeks to make that guy honest. I think there is an element, I think there's a time and place, side conversation, to where you can have some SPO type quick throws over here. The key for your quarterback is rhythm. It's a one-step rhythm. Whatever you're going to do over here to the field to account for or punish this guy by cheating too much to the boundary, it's got to be a one-step rhythm. But the point I'm trying to make is this is something that we've had to address through the years. How do we control number 4? You can say, well, we want our quarterback to look off to the back, and that has some merit. I'm going to talk about the back in a minute. But that also led us to what we call 80 and 81. So 80 and 81 means that to the number side, so odd numbers for us are to the left, even to the right. To the front side, I say front side, but it's not really the quarterback's first look side, but to the front side, as the number indicates, it still functions just like our 88, 89. So 81 to the guys on the left is exactly like 89. 80 is exactly like 88 for us. But now we're also going to create a double screen, and you could really call this a double alley screen. A lot of people have a double screen where the first part of it is the back swinging. We have that. I'll show you that in just a second. But now we're actually going to create a second alley screen. This is an empty concept for us, but we're in empty a lot, so it's not like this is the only thing we're doing out of empty. It is a 3x2. Potentially, you could do it with 3 receivers to the field and 1 and a running back to the boundary. So you could do it 3x1 that way. But what we're doing is to the back side, which also is going to be the first side that the quarterback looks to, is we're going to have a screen that hits a tick faster than our boundary alley screen. And so we call that the fast screen side. So you have a front side, which the number indicates 81 to the left, and you have a fast screen side. And so on the fast screen side, the guard and tackle are going to try to get out as fast as humanly possible. And we're going to try to throw to a potential cavity over the number 3 receiver. And certain defensive structures will give you this cavity. Certain defensive structures won't give you this cavity. One thing that's been helpful as we built this out and played with it over the course of the last 2 years is that typically the looks, the rotations, the coverages that take this cavity away are also the looks, the rotations, the coverages that are most favorable to throw your basic backside alley screen, and vice versa, and vice versa. The same looks and structures that tend to give, and this is where it came from, the same pictures you get that create problems with this backside overhang tend to not really leverage the field side number 3 or inside receiver. So that's kind of the concept. We're trying to create something a little quicker to give us somewhere to go if the defense over rotates, should we say, to the boundary, or over bosses to the boundary. So if you are the 3rd receiver in to the fast screen side, or the side away from the numbers, you're going to split top of the number, or excuse me, I'm sorry. If you're the outside receiver, you're going to split top of the numbers. You're trying to block touchdown alley. If you are the 2nd receiver, you're going to split on the hash, because we are trying to stress, we're trying to force whoever is matching number 2, we're trying to stress whoever the hook curl player is, or the flat curl player is. We're trying to stress him by alignment and make him declare who he's really going to leverage, where he's going to leverage 3 or 2. So we're trying to create some space here. So he's going to split all the way to the hash. What he has to decide is, am I in position where I can cut off this overhang player? Maybe the overhang player is aligned 5 yards inside of me and I'm never going to get there. That's fine, but you have to communicate with this guard and tackle what your situation is. If you got him, you got to tell him you got him. If you don't got him, you got to tell him you don't got him, so that these guys know to include him in their count. That's a big part of this play, is how are we going to deal with the overhang? And you're going to see in just a minute that some of it is you deal with the overhang by the quarterback's decision, so there's a safety net involved. But if you think you can cut that guy off, you're going to aim 4 yards to his inside, rage and beat him to a spot, break down, and then run through his upfield shoulder and finish the block. That's your basic guideline. If you have identified that you cannot block him, then you'll release straight to the safety. And that's how the communication happens there. Notice at the center, he is blocking his normal 88-89. He's going to the front side of the play, in this case, the left. He understands that the backside guard is unavailable to help him with the nose. Backside guard and tackle. Number one, they have to find out, are they responsible for that overhang? They have to know that based on what they heard from the 2nd receiver out. Second of all, they're going to set into the line of scrimmage, and they're going to release right now, which is about a count faster than their brethren to the front side are releasing. Like, they are into the line of scrimmage and gone. They should have a sense pre-snap of who's going to be the first one to get out and who's going to be the second one to get out, based on the alignment of the defensive end and the overall structure of the defense. And that takes some work and takes some feel. This picture right here, with a 5 technique on the tackle shoulder, the guard knows he's probably going to be the first out. The first out's responsibility is hang to C-gap linebacker to alley. Now, if he hears the receiver say, "No, I got him," which for us would be solo, now he knows he can go straight from the C-gap linebacker to the alley. In this case, in this defense, there is no C-gap linebacker. And so he's either going hang up to the alley, or he's going to go straight to the alley if nothing shows if the wide receiver takes the hang, I should say. So this is the picture right here for whoever is the first out. I hear the call. If I'm not responsible for the hang, I'm going to pull flat for the C-gap linebacker who's going to be running to the ball. If there is no C-gap linebacker, I'm going to the alley. If I hear a help call, I know I have to go pull the kick out, the hang. That's how the first guy out works. The second guy out has the C-gap linebacker to the A-B gap linebacker. Again, a receiver saying "I got it" or saying solo means you can always chop off the first part of your rule. So if he says "I got it," then you can go straight to the A or B gap linebacker. And again, you're going to set with one punch and get out as quickly as you humanly can. So those are the two guys that are establishing the fast screen to the fast screen side. The screener himself is going to split 6 yards. Notice he's backside by definition, by how he relates to the number. He takes one step up and one step back. That's it. And he's finding the block of the first out, and then he's jumping inside. It's a one cut, fancy, no fancy, no dancing, no sideways type play. We're trying to create an internal crease before the defense can react. So the quarterback has to know pre-snap what's cooking in terms of how the overhang is getting blocked and how big a threat the overhang really is. Quite honestly, if that second receiver is making the help call, there's a pretty good chance the quarterback's not throwing to the backside or the fast screen side. Because the thing we say to the quarterback is, if the fast screen is not given, don't take it. Okay. It's going to be something that's easy and clean to throw. And it's thrown off of a rocker step. In other words, just one step and it's gone. And the one thing we say to him is, as you take the rocker step, even if you loved it pre-snap, if there's anything wonky in your sight line, forget about it and get off of it. So for example, let's say that I heard a solo call, meaning the receiver saying, "Hey man, I got it. We're clean." And you see a bubble you like, and you really think this is going to be an easy pitch and catch, and you drop, and all of a sudden the end took one step and then just widened into your throwing line, get off of it. You don't ever have to throw this into a tricky or a cloudy or a murky look. If you don't like it either by pre-snap or post-snap, at the end of your rocker step, and we were not great with this part of it this year, at the end of your rocker step, separate your hands with a short pump and then reset for depth and throw your basic backside alley screen. We didn't always do a good job of separating our hands before we got backside. But the point is, you've created, even if you don't get to throw this, you've created a very viable natural look off, because if this guy's reading guards at all, then he's going to fast flow. So you've solved your number 4 problem, and you've solved your boundary overhang problem just by the virtue of having the threat of this play. So that's 80-81. This is the first way that we kind of round out our boundary alley screen game. And I'll go ahead and go to some tape of this before we go on to sort of the next deal here. This has been, I would say, consistent, not like super dynamically explosive, but it has given us places to go with the ball in situations where we ordinarily would not have a place to go with the ball. So this is 80 for us. So to these guys on the right, it's just like our basic alley screen, and the quarterback has it available to him. This is the fast screen backside. He could be a little wider. He's probably not OT +6. This receiver right here should be saying, yeah, I can cut him off. We're good. And with the safety right here on the, above the hard deck at about 9 yards, you have the nice natural cavity that you like to have over number 3 to run this play. So between these two guys, you're going to get first out, second out. Whoever's the first out, he should be making an I've got it call. So whoever's the first out, there really is no C-gap linebacker. So the first out should go C-gap linebacker. Nope, I'm climbing to the alley. The second guy out should be running a flat course. There's no C-gap linebacker. There's no overhang responsibility. So I'm going to end up with this pursuing linebacker right here. And this is pretty much how it works. Not sure what our center's doing here. We would normally never release the center to the fast screen side, so I'm not sure how it came about that 75 ended up in this play. It's very interesting. Notice how fast the fast screen side blockers are getting out. I mean, they're gone. Notice the inside hand by 77. That's really good to club by. Left tackle could show his hands a little more to invite the pass rush, but it's enough. And the ball's out. Like, this is fast. This is ultra fast. It's catch and it's gone. Here it is in our state championship game. So the call's 81. Normal alley screen rules up here. Here's the fast screen. Here's the I got it call. Probably he's saying he can get it. Again, you love this against this kind of look. There's no real presence over the number 3 receiver. This is a B gap linebacker. So really our first out, and they're playing a tight front, it looks like here. Our first out, which probably is going to be the tackle against a tight front. Our first out can really go straight to the alley because there's no C-gap linebacker. He should end up on this free safety. Our second out, because there is a solo call and there is no C-gap linebacker, he's going to go straight to the AB gap linebacker. And they are going where they will be, not where they are. QB needs to put this ball in the upfield shoulder. It's a north-south screen. I got no problem with this cut. Get me 5 yards. Our outside receiver is trying to sell a route too much. He feels like he's got man eyes. He's too late to come cut him off. So that part could have been a little better. Getting the right tackle based on the 4 eyes alignment knows he's probably going to be first out. Really good job by the right guard of not getting too much of this 4 eye. That goes back to the roadblocks we talked about. This is 2 years ago. So here you have a C-gap linebacker, what becomes a C-gap linebacker. So probably a solo call here. He felt, for whatever reason, the tackle ends up being first out. I'm not sure why we did it that way. But because we have number 46 soloed, the tackle can go C-gap to alley. The C-gap presents itself, so he takes it. It's a one-cut play. Right guard's going to be second out. There's the AB gap linebacker, number 54. He's got to sustain his block. One good thing about the speed of this screen is you look at 62, this is a really well-coached defense. There's a retrace. This sucker happens so fast. One of the reasons we're so adamant that this gets north and south is that by getting north and south immediately, it immunizes you from the retrace a little bit. 62 and 63 are retracing this pretty quick, but the ball just gets vertical so fast that they can't. It doesn't help them as much as on the slower ones. All right, so let's talk about this one. Probably a solo call, maybe a help call. First out, not really a C gap linebacker, but he'll check C gap before he climbs to alley. The alley's deep. Second out should be on the AB gap linebacker, which should be him. The receiver's trying to make it. I guess a thing that's a little bit gray here for our left tackle is did this linebacker become a C gap linebacker? And I would say probably, yeah. Probably 74 would have been better served to turn and hit this linebacker and treat him as a C gap player. Here it is with motion. All right, so now pre-snap, what I'm saying is this. I'm saying this is not quite as rosy a picture as we had before. It's a C-gap linebacker. The hang is probably saying solo on this guy, but my first out is going to have to run a long way to get to the C-gap player, which is fine. He can get there, and that would put the second on the A-gap linebacker. But notice what happens here, and I don't blame the quarterback. He sees how wide that C-gap linebacker is, and he says, I don't love the picture. And I think he could still stay on the backside, the fake side with his eyes a little more. He's wrong about that. Our number 2 receiver's wrong too. That wasn't his line. 35 was not number 2's linebacker. But you see, it just becomes 88 on the backside. You don't have to be perfect on the front side or on the backside because you know you still have your whole normal front side. And you're creating natural look-offs for it. And you're creating natural misdirection for it as well. Again, number 8, stand up defensive end. It's just not a good picture. He doesn't like it, so he gets off of it. So now we've just got our normal 89 side, exactly like it would normally be. Screener's wrong. Screener here should get back out to where his center was. But you see, against a 3-3 stack defense, this is very often the problem. He's a guy that's typically very hard to get on your boundary alley screens. And so if you see the impact that the fast screen side has on him, even though our quarterback doesn't stay over there hardly at all. And I really wish our quarterback would separate his hands. It would make this a better deal. But there's still movement that holds number 10. If we cut the ball in the correct place, number 10 wouldn't have been a factor there. Okay. Let me jump to, this is, I'm a little ahead of myself here. Let me jump back and go to the next version we have of our field alley screen. So I'll show you this. This is not something, we have it. I know a lot of people do it better than we do, quite honestly. This is another way to build. Again, we're just trying to build on, build tools and build solutions without building the skill and the learning burden. So this would be a flare tag. Flare just means to us, we are now flaring a backside, and we're using our wide receivers on what we call told rules. Told means leave the least dangerous for the tackle. It stands for tackle on least dangerous. So there's some moving parts with that, but basically the receivers, if there's one of them, he takes the one most dangerous. If there's two of them, they take the two most dangerous. And the goal is always to leave the guy who is the secondary support, the guy that's last of the party, to leave him for the tackle, so that the tackle doesn't have to block immediate threats. And so that's the concept of the play. And so what the quarterback is going to do, and again, this is nothing that, I mean, this is as old as football itself, is he's going to read the defensive end. If the defensive end has a peel rule and peels with the back, sort of like what I just said with 80-81, if he feels crummy about the picture at all, he should separate his hands in the rhythm of his drop and come back to the alley screen side, the normal 89. So that's what flare 89, that would just be how we would build that out. We've done some work with that a couple different preseasons. Has not been great for us, but I know people that do a great job of it, for sure. So we have that. That's more conceptual. I don't have a ton of film to show you on that at this time. Let's talk about 82-83, because this is something that came alive for us this year. I'm not 100% sure why, other than it just kind of rounded us out as more and more teams were heavily defending the boundary for us. So 82-83 is basically what we do when we want to take the fundamentals of the timing and the releases of our boundary alley screen and simply move it to the field. Now you can throw 82-83 to an outside receiver, and we've done that before, but by and large, we're throwing it to an inside receiver off of what looks like bubble, or later in this season, we evolved to throw it to the middle receiver, which we would just simply call 82 or 83 mid, telling our receivers that it's the middle receiver that's going to run the screen. The only other thing that changes for us, all the fundamentals that you saw on the goal slide are the exact same as they were. We're trying to hit a screen spot on a 1001 release timing of 6x1. All those fundamentals are exactly the same. The count system is structured the same, but now they're going to add one to the count. So if you were blocking number 2 in the 88-89, you'd be blocking number 3 on 82-83. If you're blocking number 3, now you block number 4. That's just because 82 and 83 tends to be to a 3 receiver surface. And the way we block number 1 is that the outside receiver blocks number 1. Again, if you wanted to throw the 82 to number 1, you could do that. You just got to get into the screen spot in time, and now you would block number 1 with the middle receiver. That's the only thing that would change. We make the same call in terms of this overhang player and the number 2 receiver. He has to decide, can I get him? If I can get him, then now my first out can release straight to the alley, which functions exactly like 80 and 81. It's just off a little different timing. The thing we have going for us, and this is a little bit of where it fits together, This version, so we like this version. Number one, against some of the defenses, it typically causes structural problems with the 88-89 boundary alley screen. But we also like it when teams really activate and trigger to our bubble game, because we do run a decent amount of bubble game. And so what we'll do is we'll have the inside receiver, as you'll see, he is going to sell bubble for 3 steps. One of the people that helps the most is this second or middle receiver, because usually that's going to widen, at the very least widen, at most it's going to downhill trigger this overhang player, which is going to make it much easier for him to get that solo block without asking for help from the offensive line. So that's the second big reason we like this 82-83 alley screen, is because it creates the initial picture and the initial fit, if you will, by the defense off of a bubble look, which does tend to draw eyes, especially because last year we happened to be a pretty good bubble team. So again, the rules are the same other than the count system and being alert. In this case, we might call it trouble. The linemen are alert for a trouble call, which would put them on the hang. And then if that second receiver calls trouble, then he knows he's going straight to the number 3. But the timing, everything else, the ambush rules, all that stuff that's in the fundamental DNA of our 88-89 is the exact same for 82. Now, 82 mid can also fit into that conversation, because what you can do, and your receivers can learn this, it depends on if you're heavily invested in the screen game. If I've called 82, but we see this player right here sees that this leverage is going to be a problem because he's splitting the difference and I don't think I can get there, then he can call, or we can call from the booth or from the game plan, we can call 82 mid. 82 mid means now the middle guy is going to run the screen course. It's his job to get to the screen spot on the same timing. And now our inside receiver has a much better angle to block that overhang. You lose the bubble effect, but it's still, but now you have better angles to block the overhang. So it's a good trade-off, and it's a very simple little tool to add. There's your screener course. Again, everything else is the same. Let's go back to the tape on this. So you can kind of see how this played out for us. Here you see our number 3 receiver who's wearing jersey number 2 sells bubble. He could sell it with a little more urgency probably. 87 is saying I can get this guy, so there's no need for a trouble or a help call. We're not doing a very good job of getting guys out, but we get them out far enough. For the number 3, now the first out has number 3. Not the best look at it, but you get the idea. Here's 82 mid. So now the middle guy is going to get to the screen spot. It's the same screen spot. Now the inside receiver is blocking the first thing outside him. So we've got a great angle to this hang. Everybody else blocks their normal rules. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the numbers are +1 because it's 82. In this case, we're trying to use a little motion as well. Sometimes this could marry off of your 4 strong picture. So you can see there's a lot of people running to the running back as a potential fast 4. They're in a man coverage concept, and we were fortunate to catch them in a blitz. One of the things we do on all of our alley screens is against odd defenses, we tend to make a call right here where one of these 2 guys just drives the nose, because the nose tends to be the biggest problem for all your screens. So our backside guard here, once that nose comes to him, he's going to drive him to the whistle. So he can't cat out and try to retrace. Here's 83 mid again. This is at a 4x1. We said at a 4x1 that it was the second guy out that was going to be the screener. So now it's going to be block the first guy out. There's one, there's two, there's three. This will become the first outs guy. This becomes the second outs guy. Really good job of building the alley here. The number one thing you're always fighting your lineman on is being flat enough. It's a pretty good job of angles. Really good job of ambush by number 75, our center, looking for the retrace. Okay, so you get the good, the bad, and the ugly. So here is an example. This is 83 mid, I believe. This is an example. One of the issues you fight, and I haven't gone too deep into the techniques tonight. One of the things you have to fight is your tackle and how to set a defensive end. You would love to run the defensive end past the throwing lane. But if he's not going to run past the throwing lane, then you have to drive him. There's an area we call 2 yards deep. We call the no strike zone. If you're engaged with him in the no strike zone, you risk having him feel the screen and be able to get his hands up. This kid makes a terrific play for Cincinnati Elder, number 9. The part of it was we didn't get him out of the no strike zone from a tackle position. So I just thought I would show you this rather than just making a highlight reel. This is an honest man's reel. He ends up housing it. Just a heck of a play. But that's one of the issues you have to deal with in terms of the tackles technique. Yeah, this was 83 mid. And we're trying to use the motion. You can see with number 15 and 54, 2 linebackers trying to use the motion to help us leverage the linebackers. It's an in-between read for our tackle. Should I drive him or should I club him by? He just needed to be a little more decisive on his second kick. Like I said, mostly it's just a great play by their kid.
Just a heads up, Coach, you got about 2 minutes.
Gotcha. Here's a situation where we just don't run our feet on contact. This was a really good defense. We're trying to use motion to widen the overhang player and make the block at the point of the alley a little bit easier. The big thing we're not doing is striking on contact here. We're playing a really well-coached, athletic, physical team right there. Not a great bubble cell right here by our inside guy. We need some more urgency. Our tackle, the rule you see by our tackle here is they end up in a mug type look. If the guy in your front side gap that you're setting off of clicks out, your rule is I got to go get him. So it's a real nice adjustment by our right tackle right here to go get a guy you would normally be setting. Good flat courses as well by our linemen. And this is an old one. This is the kid that just got drafted by the Ravens to be a defensive end. That's Greg Rousseau. This is our kid right here, number 1, that just got drafted by the Cardinals. So right here, I put this clip in here to show you that the bubble course can really help with an overhang you might normally need a help call on, because it widens the guy just enough. Now, we're not great at the point of attack, but we get enough up in the alley to where it works. Good ball placement by the quarterback. All right, it looks like I'm out of time. If you have any kind of questions at all, or you would like any of this video or anything that I've shared, or just the base alley screen stuff, feel free to contact me. It's always a pleasure to meet new coaches and talk ball and kick ideas around. This is something that was handed down to me, like I said, 18 years ago by Rob Spencer, 20 years ago maybe. Hopefully we've been a good steward of it. Investing heavily in a screen game has been well worth it for us. And so if there's anything we can do to help you at St. Xavier High School, please don't hesitate to ask. I hope you guys are enjoying a great clinic. Thank you very much.